Morning, everyone. I hope this is a bit clearer. Thanks to Jess in my Year 9 class. She suggested using iPhone headphones, so I'm a bit clearer. So hopefully it is a bit clearer, and you can get the opportunity to go through it and do your work as you would do. I've been toying with the idea of doing some kind of more interactive lessons, but I think for now, just for today, I'll do another one of these and then message you all and show my homework. What I've been doing is keeping a folder of all of your work that you're sending through. And I know I've given some of you some feedback so far, but what I'd really like you all to do as well is obviously keep working in your books if you are. Otherwise, just keep all of that work because it's going to be really, really useful. Because essentially, I've not stopped. We're still now. Where are we? We're now in between Pasteur and Koch. So you'll see what I mean. What I'm going to do, guys, is just in a minute after I've done this, I'm going to put the next yellow sheet on show my homework. You don't have to print it out if you haven't got a printer. I haven't got a printer at home. If you wanted to take a picture of it, and that's the journey we're going on. Now, I'm hoping we will certainly be back in school by the time we get to here. We just don't know. And then obviously there'll be a big task to revise stuff you've done when you're off, but also go forward with the next topic as well. Right, I'm just going to ask you on that first page there to get the key learning question down, because we're looking at two doctors again and revising two doctors in a lot of detail, because Pasteur and Koch, Louis Pasteur the Frenchman and Robert Koch the German scientist, are really, really significant in not only the development of the germ theory, but also contributions that they made, and Koch specifically made, to developing vaccinations against specific diseases. So you can tell I haven't changed the key words, because I still, he's the most important in my opinion, because he's the one that discovers the germ theory initially, which disproves spontaneous generation and then actually helps Robert Koch. So just take a minute, pause the video now, and see which ones of those 8 questions you can answer in 5 minutes. You don't necessarily need to write the question down. If it's easier for you to answer them in your head, I'm happy with that. If it's easier for you to write down some of the answers because you're recapping and then green pen when we go through them, again, more than happy with that. So just take a bit of time. I'm not going to pause the video, but just press pause and have a go at those questions, and we'll come back and go through them. Okay, hopefully you've pressed pause and been able to have a go at some of those questions there, recap questions. Number one, obviously, we've recapped and gone over quite a few times, is Louis Pasteur, the French scientist in 1861. Spontaneous generation was this idea, wasn't it, that actually it was the germs causing the decay, and not the decay causing the germs, which was what the germ theory was. That germs actually cause disease. It's the first time that Pasteur realises in 1861, and people are like, oh right, that germs cause disease. We didn't know that. So things like infections, with the work that we're going to have a look at of Simpson and Lister when we get anaesthetics and antiseptics, they're going to reduce as well. But it's a key turning point in medicine that germs cause disease. Because we're going to have a look at in a minute what they used to think caused disease, which all of you know really well. What technology, number 4, helped Pasteur's discovery? Well, obviously that's the microscope, and the resolution of the microscope improved to about times 1,000. You could also talk about conical flasks, and we'll look at an image later with other elements of technology that do help. Even things like the Bunsen burner and heating things as an element of technology do help him. But there are other bits that we'll have a look at in today's lessons in a bit more detail. German. Robert Koch was German, and interesting, when this was going on, there was a big fight between France and Germany, called the Franco-Prussian War. Prussia is just a part of Germany that borders France, and it was a fight for land. But at the same time, this fight was going on in the laboratory between who could be the best scientist between Koch and Pasteur. There's a fight between the two countries, and you'll see that on a video we're going to watch in a bit. Two factors that contributed to Pasteur's discovery, well, you could have a few, but obviously individual genius being one, science and technology developing being another. You could actually have war that drove him, and competition between him and Koch that kind of drove his individual genius further. Teamwork, he had a lot of people working with him to develop these vaccinations, so you could have that as well. But certainly not religion. That had no impact in anything here, so that factor is not used at all, and really not communication. Okay. What animals did Pasteur test on? That's a difficult one, because if you didn't do specific type of research on Friday, you'll find that hard. But you'll find later he tested on anthrax, on sheep. So mainly used those, and some of you might have said silkworms as well. How did Robert Koch take the discovery further? Number 8. Essentially, he develops the germ theory by actually saying, okay, well, which specific microbe, which specific germ causes which specific disease? When he knows which specific microbe or germ causes which specific disease, he isolates that microbe by dyeing it, and then he would create a vaccination using Jenner's idea to actually kill that microbe. So when we have, and you have when you're in year 8, I think, vaccinations against certain things, that's essentially what they're doing. They're creating an immunity towards a disease by making sure that if you come into contact with that specific microbe, it's not going to create and turn into that disease. So he develops vaccinations for certain diseases that we'll look at today. Okay, right. Like I said, I'll put this on Show My Homework, so you have this as well. And you can go back and have a look at it, but you can kind of see what we're doing. You can see the significance of the germ theory in Robert Koch, because it takes up about 5 lessons. Just trying to cover quite a bit of it quite quickly, but there is a lot of detail on those too. And weirdly, in the White Revision Guide, not too much on them, but they are really significant people. So just bear that in mind. Sorry, I sound really boring today, don't I? That's probably what I sound like every day, but I've got a real cold. And then you've got Magic Bullets, Lister, Simpson, and so on and so forth. Okay? Right. So, another activity for you, which I think a lot of you will be able to engage in. There are 6 different pictures on the board there. I just want you to spend, just as long as it takes you, 3 or 4 minutes, just to kind of work out what you think the pictures stand for. They're all about causes of disease. So obviously, to tell you now, that one there is evil spirits. Okay, and then have a go at trying to place them in order, which is really hard. Everyone will be able to do the green one, and if you can, try and explain the development of understanding of disease up to 1860. The key thing is that everyone has a go at number 1, really, and just work out what the pictures stand for. So pause again, give yourself a couple of minutes, and just do that. Okay, thanks. Okay, hopefully you've paused and you've worked out that we have miasma and bad smells, evil spirits, as I suggested before. You've also got religion and punishment from God. You've also got this idea of decaying matter, and then the development of spontaneous generation. You've got astrology and the movement of the planets, and then you've got the 4 humours. So well done, even if you got 3 of those. In an exam, you'd only need 3 out of the 6 to have an understanding of what caused disease over time. In terms of putting them in chronological order, you'll realise that one comes kind of first. And then these 4 here kind of come in sync, because it's pretty much in the Middle Ages that they do believe all of these 4. And then finally this one will come last. So the order of those 4 doesn't massively matter, because miasma, punishment from God, evil spirits, and astrology are things that they believe in the Middle Ages as well. Okay, right, so you can see quite backward in development of understanding what caused disease until we get the germ theory. Right, there are two cartoons which, you know, unfortunately I can't print and ask you to stick down, but if you can, perfect. If you can't, it doesn't matter at all. Okay. The point was just to have a chat about these, and obviously I'd go through these on the board, wouldn't I? We'd have a good discussion about what the cartoon's showing. So I'm just going to give you about 30 seconds just to have a little think about what you think the cartoon's showing, about how this is helping Pasteur develop the germ theory. What is there in this picture? Okay, again, it was a thinking task. You would have done it in pairs in the lesson and spoke through things. But you could probably see from the picture, we've got Pasteur here, okay, and obviously he's looking through a microscope there. So the first thing would be microscope with a really detailed resolution, allowing him to see more detail. So that will be the first part of technology developing. You've also got things like conical flasks and lots of other kind of scientific tools and implements here, which would suggest that technology is developing. The pile of books here, okay, would talk about communication and printing press and ideas developing and scientific ideas developing. Even in the background, you can see reference to conical flasks. It's beginning to look like a real laboratory, how his kind of testing centre is working with access to gas and to water. We haven't quite got electricity yet, so he's still got lanterns and lights there, and lots of things you can use in the background. So essentially that's the key point, is that there's a breakthrough really with the amount of technology and things available to him, so he can create his germ theory and become kind of this legend in microbiology. Now, the next picture is slightly different, and it's not very clear. You won't be able to see it very clearly. The snake is actually tuberculosis. It's labelled as tuberculosis. And we can see there, we've got Robert Koch on this horse with something that he's trying to kill the snake with. So it's tough, but if we know Robert Koch created vaccinations, okay, what do you think this cartoon is showing? Have a think about that. Okay, so hopefully you've worked out that actually this is a vaccination for that disease, and he's trying to kill that disease. Koch, like I said before, finds a special way to stain bacteria, to stain germs, making them easier to identify under microscopes. And that allows him to link specific germs to specific diseases. So that vaccination, you would suggest, links to TB, tuberculosis. And that was a major killer in Britain and a major killer in Europe. He also found vaccinations for diseases like diphtheria and typhoid, so fewer people actually died. And he had this team of microbe hunters who would do actually that. So that cartoon is just showing that. Him riding the horse of kind of discovery and teamwork with his microbe hunters, carrying the vaccination for the snake tuberculosis, helps him improve the treatment of disease. Okay. Right, so we need to have a bit more of an understanding on the two. We know that one is French and we know one is German. So in your books, if you could just draw this table, I would suggest you'd only need about a third or a half of a page. If you haven't got your books because you're still at school and all your work's being done on computer or on paper, that's absolutely fine. This is, again, all of this is about thinking, isn't it, and revision. So I know I'm going to have a massive task, even though I'm reading all of the work you're sending me and giving you feedback. I'm really want to take all your books in, you know, if hopefully over the summer and crack on and spend 2, 3, 4 days going through and looking at them in detail, give you some more feedback so we can hit the ground running when we start again. But the video is great. I think you've seen quite a lot from this series, but the good thing about this one is it talks about the competition between the two. So by all means, pause it at any point. I think quite a lot of you probably enjoy pausing me because I'm massively annoying. But you've got Pasteur on one side and Koch on the other side. That's what my wife would say as well. And you've got a video that you're going to watch now. So as you're watching it, you might want to pause and put bullet points in either side to show the differences and similarities between Pasteur and Koch. But I'll just pop the video on now. Hopefully the sound's better today, thanks to Jess using these headphones. Right. You know that I like these. You've heard the introduction quite a few times. Oh.
Medicine through time. Pasteur and Koch.
I'll start it again because it's frozen. Just bear with me.
Germ theory. The delectable idea that disease is caused by microorganisms invading the body. We literally get infested. It's gross, but it's true. Though people didn't always believe it. Even by the start of the 19th century, people had all sorts of crazy ideas about where disease came from, such as the theory of miasma, which claimed that disease
Right. Let's close this down.
were caused by foul-smelling air.
There we are. Right, we'll start it again.
Medicine through time. Pasteur and Koch. Germ theory.
It's not allowing me to do full screen.
The delectable idea.
So when it comes back,
Disease is caused by microorganisms invading the body. We literally get infested. It's gross, but it's true. Though people didn't always believe it. Even by the start of the 19th century, people had all sorts of crazy ideas about where disease came from, such as the theory of miasma, which claimed that diseases were caused by foul-smelling air. Not that kind. And the theory of spontaneous generation, which stated that life basically arose from, nothing. These views started to change when two mighty microbiologists, fueled by national rivalry, entered into a battle to become the first person to prove where disease came from.
right, this has got to work better. Shall I just come out here? There we are. Brilliant.
Medicine through time.
Eventually.
Pasteur and Koch. Germ theory. The delectable idea that disease is caused by microorganisms invading the body. We literally get infested. It's gross, but it's true. Though people didn't always believe it. Even by the start of the 19th century, people had all sorts of crazy ideas about where disease came from, such as the theory of miasma, which claimed that diseases were caused by foul-smelling air. Not that kind. and the theory of spontaneous generation, which stated that life basically arose from, nothing. These views started to change when two mighty microbiologists, fueled by national rivalry, entered into a battle to become the first person
You
to
got one
prove where
French, one
disease came
German.
from. Enter Louis Pasteur of France and Robert Koch of Germany. It was the Frenchman who landed the first punch. Pasteur was the first to challenge old balmy beliefs, hypothesizing that germs caused disease, and not vice versa.
So the first one,
He of
germs
Koch
cause disease.
fame was able to prove that milk went off, and not just because, well, it just did, but because of bacteria in the air.
So first idea is that Pasteur understands that milk is going off, which is where the idea of pasteurisation comes from. It's named after him. And obviously he's worked out that it's by specific bacteria, which he's just going to explain now.
Pasteur went on to argue that this same bacteria could cause disease. To describe these ideas, he coined the phrase germ theory. But someone was hot on Pasteur's heels. Oh yeah! About a decade after Pasteur had first concocted germ theory, Koch took the next step by, making rodents sick.
So he's testing vaccinations on rats and mice. That's what Koch does. Creates vaccinations and tests them on mice and rats.
He isolated anthrax bacteria and injected it into healthy mice, who then became ill, proving that the bacteria was the cause. This was Pasteur's germ theory in practice, and quite literally in the bodies of cute little mice. Oh. The rivalry between Pasteur and Koch massively speeded up medical progress, thanks to the Franco-Prussian War of 1870 to 1870.
So there's, like I said earlier, there's a war going on between them, which again kind of intensifies this competition, and actually, as he's just suggested there, speeds up the development of medicine. So if you're talking about progress through time, this is an area where it's beginning to accelerate, and it's been quite slow up until now.
The two scientists' respective nations were fighting each other on the battlefield as well as in the lab, so their research was charged with epic significance. National pride was at stake, and nobody wanted to lose the battle of the bacteria. Koch went on to find ways of staining, photographing, and therefore identifying different bacteria, disproving old ideas about all bacteria being the same. This pioneering work, which led to the identification of 21 disease-causing germs of the bacteria. Koch went on to find ways of staining, photographing, and therefore identifying different bacteria.
So technology he used was staining and photographing, two key parts of his process in working out which specific bacteria cause which disease.
Proving old ideas about all bacteria being the same.
So all bacteria is obviously different.
Work, which led to the identification of 21 disease-causing germs by 1900, earned Koch his status as the father of modern bacteriology.
Key specific fact: he creates 21. He finds out 21 specific bacteria causes 21 different diseases, and he's almost like the daddy. He's the father of this modern idea of bacteriology, and the father and the leader of these microbe hunters who are looking for different microbes.
Meanwhile, Pasteur was still beavering away, or should we say, chickening away. His germ of an idea about germs had led him to study cholera in chickens.
So the next stage for Pasteur is he looks into chicken cholera and works out what causes chicken cholera.
He found that when he injected an old culture of cholera bacteria into his birds, they fell ill but did not die as expected. And from that point on, they were resistant to fresh cholera injections. This wasn't in itself a brand new idea, as a century earlier, the father of the vaccination, Edward Jenner...
So it's pretty similar to what Jenner's done. It's exactly the same, really, with the word that Jenner did with vacca and the cows, Latin for cows, and when he created the vaccination. So, but yeah.
Jenner had found that a small dose of cowpox could immunise against smallpox. But what was groundbreaking was that Pasteur was the first person ever to create vaccines in a lab. This was a massive turning point in the fight against infectious disease, as it meant that vaccines could be manufactured, eventually on a mass scale.
So Pasteur does also create them in his lab and then mass produce them. So that, as the guys just said, is a turning point. Because if you can mass produce vaccinations, then you can properly start making sure that people are not dying of specific diseases, and you can eventually wipe diseases out.
In Britain, meanwhile, the likes of Tyndall, Roberts and Cheney were frantically translating and lecturing.
three different people who were part of the microbe hunters. Key one's probably Tyndall, but you can go back and pause the video if you want. I can on their names. You won't get a question on them individually, but it's good to know who they are. So just their surnames is fine. Tyndall, Roberts and Cheney, just three people that kind of worked in Britain to try and develop this idea that's going on in France and Germany. Please don't worry if you sat there and there's so much to take in. I'm really teaching it to a grade 9, and there's going to be some things that some of you will forget. It's not a problem at all. And like I say, with every one of these lessons, you do what you can. You know, even if you sat there with your headphones and just listening to my video for half an hour, 35 minutes, that's fine.
Were frantically translating and lecturing Pasteur and Koch's ideas. And as a result, the ideas of Pasteur and Koch spread rapidly. Soon, a new generation of young Pasteur and Koch disciples came to be known as the microbe hunters. And their work was influential in its own right, inspiring new research and new findings. Pasteur died in 1895 and Koch keeled over in 1910. But the fight against germs didn't stop. It had only just started. They passed the bacteria baton on to even more doctors and scientists who continued to study and combat all manner of diseases, from tuberculosis to rabies and even the pesky plague. By the end of the 19th century, scientists were beginning to truly understand what caused disease and so much unnecessary death. So after all those intense, sweaty rounds in the metaphorical boxing ring, Pasteur and Koch's gentlemanly tussle paid off. And they've both gone down in history as heavyweight champions of medicine. Bravo, boys. Bravo. Nice pants, by the way.
Okay, yeah, I think that's a nice phrase to end on, that they are seen as heavyweight champions of medicine. I think it's a really nice phrase to end on. What I don't want to do now is to go into the next part in detail. I think all of the stuff on the slide here, you get, the conical flask and heat and technology and microscopes are important. He actually, interestingly, Pasteur, I don't know if you've researched this, but his first discovery was by accident. It was by chance when he was investigating why sugar beet soured and why sugar got sour. And he proved basically that it was because germs carried in the air were making it sour. There's more detail and more videos you can watch around Pasteur and more learning you can do, but I don't want you to go into so much detail when you don't actually need to. And like I said here, he proved there were germs in the air by sterilising some water and keeping it in a flask that didn't allow airborne particles to enter. So there's just a little bit more about Koch and Koch developing Pasteur's work as well. Like it said in the video, spending a lot of time looking at specific germs that cause specific diseases. With the development of technology he discovered that microbes basically had been invisible for ages. So as technology has got better and as the idea of staining came in, he could basically work out these tiny microbes that no one ever knew were there were causing disease. And that's kind of what's happening now, I suppose, with people developing this vaccination. They're trying to go through this type of process, which takes a long time. And finally, I just had a little look at factors that help their development, and I think all of those factors kind of do play a bit of a part in how things develop. There's a lot there, guys, and I could go on. I planned a bit more detail on those two. But I'm conscious of time, and I'm conscious that even though this video is 30 minutes, if you want to do it properly, you might have to pause it and stuff. It's going to take you too long. So that's why I'm not going to set anything on Friday. Also, it's VE Day, which is a massively important day in the history of the country. 75. So it'll be very, very interesting to watch what goes on TV and see how people celebrate that, considering the weird times that we're in. But if we were in school, we'd certainly be doing something for VE Day and asking people to contribute in some way and learn in some way. But a lot of you have already gone into detail around the Second World War in Year 8, so hopefully you can see the significance. But keep it up, guys. I know it's really tough. I'm finding it really hard now. I'll be in school tomorrow, but I will try and do one of the videos in school, because I think they're slightly better than me just sat here talking through a PowerPoint. But at least it's not you on your own in your room. Like I say, if you want to stick your headphones in and just listen, then I'm more than happy with that. Just drop me a note on Show My Homework saying that's what you did. If you prefer to keep doing what you're doing when that's brilliant work from lots of people, then please upload those, because I am looking at every single one of them every day. Spent a day yesterday looking at my year 7s, and it was awesome, the projects that they're doing. So yeah, please keep going, and take care. Send me any messages you want to on Show My Homework. Email me whenever you want to, and all the best. Stay safe. Take care for now. Bye.